So, welcome to the Glorious Debris Podcast. I'm Milton Dixon. I'm here with
Grace Yoder.
And we're here to talk about lots of stuff.
I'm kind of interested in maybe taking the hierarchy to different places and see how it interacts with them. I think that could demonstrate what the hierarchy is. So let's think of some examples.
Okay, so this is a follow-up to the first podcast.
Right.
Like the first one we talked about,
it was hierarchy.
We defined hierarchy as the reordering of a natural system to, how did you put it exactly?
So that one element was favored over the others? Right?
It's like it's a reordering of what could be a natural order to accommodate for systems of basically unnatural power. Right?
Yeah,
so it's like implementing control and a lot like...
Control is a good word.
So one of the things that I have noticed about like natural order versus imposed hierarchies, which are, they're basically just imposed orders.
Yes. That would be another definition then.
And one of the things about that is that in natural systems, everything has a part to play and has evolved over time to fill that role, and those things are not without struggle, but it's not constantly trying to revert back to its own nature.
Yeah, right.
Over and over and over. So like in our work, we've heard that don't push the river, and that really resonated for us as permaculturists, because anything where you're trying to push something into place that really doesn't seem to fit or takes a ton of effort is sort of a sign that we've ordered things inappropriately, that we're working outside our energetic means.
So maybe almost before we get some examples, just some signs that something is a hierarchy or is out of order. What would you look for in a system?
Right. So if there's any system where there's, I don't know, a lot of disparity.
Yeah.
Imbalance of resources. So like in a natural order, everything has its role to fill, which also means that everything's getting their needs met, right? To some degree. That balance is partially kept because everything like is flowing and getting its needs met. The bird gets fed, the whatever catches the bird, like
is meeting its needs.
Everything kind of makes sense.
It's expressing behaviors. Stress is when a need is not met or a behavior is not allowed. That's a definition that I got from David Jackie. Something like that.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's his definition of stress.
He takes a very ecological view of systems, and I think that's a pattern that is probably true across different scales and stuff.
Well, and so like everything dies, everything feels stress at one point or another.
Absolutely.
But there's sort of like a qualitative difference between the natural system's stress and the imposed system's stress.
Yeah. An
opposed... Not a fully developed thought, really.
No. Like in an opposed system's stress, I guess the stress isn't killing it. If the stress killed whatever, then that would be the end of it. Right? So I think that's the ultimate stress.
Right. Well, and theoretically, something in that situation would be taking over and filling a niche.
Right.
In our place.
Right. So let's connect it to...
About like okay, so one of the other things about natural systems versus imposed systems is that there's acute stress versus chronic stress.
Right.
And I think those are indicators. In any system where there's chronic, repeated stress, on the same
needs not being met.
Yeah, needs not being met.
Right? But it's not enough to kill you.
Right. It's a very sure sign that something is naturally out of balance.
So I'm thinking of like farm animals. Say they are well fed by this ecosystem that they live, right? So that particular stress is not there. But say they're in that same ecosystem, but they're not well fed. That ecosystem's going to have times of boom and bust. By choice, they'll go somewhere else, right? But then you take those same animals and you start feeding them grain, right? Say they like corn, they'll eat corn, that's fine, and they can live off of it. If you feed them enough corn, and they have all the corn that they need, then they're not going to be stressed. But if you keep them hungry enough so that they always are not getting enough, then that would be more like a chronic stress.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas if you were feeding them corn and everything was good, and then, oh my gosh, there was a corn shortage. One thing that would be different is they wouldn't have the chance to go somewhere else to look on their own. That they would be forced to wait for the corn or die.
Yeah.
Let's think about the chickens. Like the chickens, right now we have the chickens in a coop. They get all the grain that they want, but they can't leave. Right? And they do have a pretty big forage area. Although I'm sure they couldn't live off of that area without the grain.
Right.
But then they get all your food scraps, but they're not under chronic stress.
No, but okay, so using that example though, we're not exempt from that hierarchy.
Well, oh, no.
So like I think I'm more in relationship with the chickens than like a factory farm
well,
or
because
something like that.
number one, they have forage area. Even if you had them in the old space, right, where all they had was like bare ground and whatever grain you gave them. That's stressful compared to now having shade and like they can fulfill.
Right.
They can be chickens. They can fulfill all their functions in that space and be.
So I mean, you kind of know that you're flying in the face of existing hierarchies when things get easier.
Yeah.
For everybody involved.
Well, yeah,
not
so
just for you.
not just
because
for you.
actually, like that is part of the thing about a hierarchy is that whoever's on top has the advantage and has more than their share. You know,
That's right.
they're enacting slavery essentially.
And, well, they have control.
Somewhere down the line.
Control, I think, is that great word.
Right.
They're controlling the chickens in some way that doesn't benefit the chickens and benefits them.
So
right?
there's this interesting story of struggle, like pre-civilized human struggled so much, never knew where the next meal was coming, always in fight or flight. Like there's this, and I am suspecting that that's largely a myth.
Well, we don't. I mean, whatever
We don't
history
know.
we really have of that, right?
But
that's just the story.
Definitely like the narrative that we have of
Right.
pre-civilization
Being
human
rough.
beings.
But that was, I mean,
Is that they just suffered and
when
died
was
and were
pre-civilization?
cold and-
Like, do we have any? Are the stories of the Bible pre-civilization?
I'd call pre-civilization pre-ag.
Well, then, I don't know that we
agriculture
do
is
have
like
any.
Right, so we will maybe never know.
Right.
But the reason that I suspect that it wasn't like that, is because that narrative is so important to us in maintaining the current system of control and subjugation.
Right.
Like, we have to have that story about pre-civilization, otherwise I feel like none of this is acceptable. Because when you tell the story, it's really pretty kind of insane, the lengths, like, and some of the moves that we make are kind of nonsensical, systems building wise. Like, so you start with just agriculture, and it was beneficial to some degree, but it meant, like, what we know about it now is that the further you take it, like, it's backbreaking labor, first of all.
The results of it don't.
You slowly
actually
become enslaved to it because you start to need to feed the growing population and go further and further out of your zone of habitation in order to fulfill the needs of that growing population. And you do that
There are health effects on that population
by
too.
continuing to subjugate the landscape by implementing like
Right.
really stress-inducing methods, like taking it down to, which can sometimes be natural, and obviously it's complicated because I'm not saying that growing stuff and being a human that plants seeds and stuff is always bad.
No, but there's a natural change to the landscape. There's a natural succession to the landscape that is not.
Right, and I think, it's kind of a you'll know it by its fruit sort of situation where where has this wonderful advantage of modern agriculture gotten us?
Corn and soy.
Yeah,
Roundup,
basically
Roundup Ready
it's
soy.
dead soil,
Roundup Ready corn.
total dependence on oil. Even organic
machines.
farming still, I think, takes so much labor. But then the systems of farming that are is starting to turn things around. The thing that's different is that they're in relationship with the landscape.
Yeah.
And they're asking how this can cycle, how everybody's needs can be met. You don't force, you don't extract.
What are everybody's needs too? I mean, we don't always know them. And how do we have a relationship with these other beings so that we know what their needs might be?
Yeah.
Rather than having preconceived notions of what it should be and their place in the landscape.
Yeah, so I think there's something to that.
Yeah.
And there's also the issue of how do you meet a system's needs without being in relationship with every part? How can you not be exploitative and...
But we can't be connected to every part, but every part can be connected. And the more connections that every part has, the better.
Well, I'd argue if we aren't connected, and connections can look different,
Yeah.
but if we aren't connected to every part, then we probably have no business controlling it,
Yes.
right? So if you're controlling it, then you're in relationship with it. If there's something else that you're in relationship with that's in relationship with something else, then that's all taken care of, but you aren't...
Right.
What you do doesn't actually directly
Right.
affect that outside
And
element.
controlling, I think, maybe is not the right word. I think it should be... I mean, relationship is better.
Well, so we're talking about control versus relationship.
Yeah.
And control is a kind of relationship. And this was another one of my recent realizations, was that I want everybody to think about the relationship they have with everything else. And it's like if you just engage, if you're engaging in an abusive, unsustainable relationship, well, then that's going to get sorted out at some point.
Yeah.
Right? Eventually. Like, we're seeing that. It actually gave me some peace about our current trajectory.
Right.
Because we are in relationship with the whole world, and we're in a bad one. It's a horrible, abusive relationship.
And it is going to sort itself out.
And it's going to work itself out because those limits. So, but that gave me faith the other way around, too.
Ha 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 ha!